Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you wanted to join me today because today we are going to talk about and react to greenwashing. Once again, I'm dressed as mustard and it's fine. A lot of you guys have requested me to talk more about greenwashing because you feel, and I totally understand this on every single possible level, that it can be difficult to figure out if a product is greenwashed or authentically green, or how to specifically decode greenwashing. And I understand, it's a whole thing, and this is not going to be my take on it. I have been creative and made some different categories of greenwashing to hopefully make this more organized and to sort of give you guys a better idea of what to look for and what kinds of different tools and tactics there is when talking about greenwashing. So let's get right into it. But firstly, what is greenwashing? Greenwashing is a marketing strategy that creates a false impression about a product's or a company's sustainability efforts. Speaking like on super broad terms. Greenwashing is the unsubstantiated claim that seeks to manipulate customers by implying that something is greener than it actually is. A company that uses greenwashing will usually exaggerate specific sustainable qualities of a product while deliberately leaving out other information. Greenwashing is used as a tool to financially profit off of consumers' growing interest in shopping green, which means that the motivation to greenwash does not necessarily indicate actual environmental concern, but rather the interest in profit. What kind of different strategies and tools are there when greenwashing? I have divided it into some categories. The first one is direct greenwashing. Direct greenwashing means that a company directly is telling you that their product is green. They may use words like green, eco, sustainable, natural. All of these fluffy buzzwords does not mean anything when it comes to marketing, and yet they mean everything. The thing is with these words, you do not need any certifications, any evidence, any proof to call your item green or to call your item or product sustainable. So any company can use these words in any context they see fit, whether or not it's actually true. Direct greenwashing can also be a company or a product telling you that it's made from recycled materials, or it's biodegradable, or it's compostable, which does not necessarily mean anything, and it does not necessarily say anything about the sustainability efforts of the product necessarily. The thing is with recycled materials is that it can be an amazing thing. Recycling is super important. It's not the most important thing. Reducing waste is the most important thing, but recycling is a really, really good step to take in sustainability. But the thing is, if you advertise that your product is recyclable, you only actually need around 5 to 10% recycled materials in your product to advertise it, and many bigger, especially like billion-dollar corporations, which you will soon see that I'm not a big fan of, they will use 10 to 15% recycled materials and then advertise it as a recycled product. No, thank you. It's the same thing with compostability. A lot of products are labeled compostable, but that doesn't actually mean squat unless you as the consumer end up composting it, and therefore it becomes this green alibi to simply just slap that on everything and then it's all good to go and super sustainable, and not always. Then we have indirect greenwashing. Indirect greenwashing, that a company is using different colors or fonts or any kind of imagery and visual aid to sort of imply sustainability. With indirect greenwashing, the company or the product is not telling you, hello, I'm sustainable. It lets your brain make the association on its own. Green visuals and aesthetic has become increasingly popular during the last 15 years, while in the 80s, every kind of ad, every logo, every brand had to be yellow and red. Today, many logos, products, etc. are labeled as green or has this green aesthetic because there's an association from green to rural areas, small town business owners, small town businesses, small companies, local businesses, and all of these things. And it doesn't have to specify where it's actually made for us to make that association. So even though our product looks like it's made in a small town business, it might very well still be a billion-dollar company. Did I bring examples? Ooh, Ooh, I brought examples. First of all, we have this Nestle ad, and there's a lot to be said. It both has indirect and direct greenwashing, so let's look at everything from like top to bottom. Firstly, there's a green background, which forces the association to something that's sustainable, something that's natural, something that's pure, which is indirect greenwashing and which is completely backed up by the name of the product, Pure Life, and by the fussy, buzzwordy eco shape wording, which means nothing. What is an eco shape? It's just the use of a word that forces an association in our brains that this product is more sustainable than any other water bottle. And there's also a small, tiny effort, broadly advertised, 15% less plastic, Nestle. Good on you. That's great. And at the very bottom it says please recycle, which puts all the responsibility of actual green actions on the consumer and removes any responsibility from Nestle themselves. Let's talk a little bit about Nestle. Should we talk about Nestle? Do we have like an hour? There's so much to be said about Nestle in general, everything from the unethical implications of child labor, inhumane working conditions, use of unethical supply chains, or, I don't know, the time Nestle was not held responsible for trafficked child slaves in their supply chain, or the time that chairman did not recognize water as a human right. Nestle also produces 1.7 billion tons of plastic annually. The past 5 years, their production of plastic has increased by 5%, and 98% of all Nestle products are sold in single-use packaging. This makes Nestle on the top 3 of plastic polluters in the world. But hey, tell me more about that eco-shaped bottle. Then we have incognito greenwashing. This is something that happens when a big corporation makes a product that is slightly more sustainable than their average line and then dresses up as a small independent company to sell that product. Today, many companies know that it is not super attractive to be a big billion-dollar corporations because many consumers want to support greener businesses or want to support or buy greener goods, and that usually means supporting smaller businesses. So they dress up or make it extremely difficult for you to figure out that they are actually indeed a billion-dollar corporation. These products at first glance will look super amazing and cool and green, and if you look on the back, there's a tiny little text that will indicate that the company responsible for this product is actually a company that you perhaps tried to avoid or tried to boycott. Some big companies use incognito greenwashing because they know that their profile won't match a sustainable shopper's habits. They know they don't match with their product and the message that product is trying to convey. Do I have an example? Yes, of course I do. This is Honest Tea. Honest Tea is at first glance something that looks terrific. It's organic, it has some lovely aesthetics, lovely muted tones. It seems like there's no big brand name, so perhaps it's from a small independent business. It's made in glass, so no plastic. It's a reusable glass flask that you can easily take home and reuse again. It takes off a lot of the boxes that says, oh, this seems sustainable. But when you turn it over and you look on the back with very small letters, it says it belongs to the Coca-Cola company. And they did a terrific job hiding that fact. Why did they make this product? Well, because a lot of consumers are choosing not to buy beverages from Coca-Cola company because Coca-Cola is the #1 plastic polluter in the world. And supporting that brand and their beverages and their product is not in line with everyone's consumer ideals. So they made a product to gain some of those consumers again, and they know they have to do that by disguising themselves. Then we have political greenwashing. This is something I didn't really know whether or not I should include it, but I do definitely feel like in this current climate, this is super important to be aware of, because everything, especially with social media, every platform where there are big corporations present, there's an agenda to it and everything that they post, and it's really important to be aware of that and to sort of see through into the agenda of any given post. So let's look a little bit at political greenwashing. This is something I see a lot of companies do. They broadcast their performative wokeness by posting, for instance, on social media that they are super duper against climate change or they are super duper against racism. And while big companies are broadcasting their super duper vague opinions about things, their products and their production line play an active role in climate change and plastic pollution, and their unsustainable and unethical supply chain specifically put people of color and indigenous people at risk. Do I have an example? Yes, I do have an example. So H&M posted this "Let's Change" on their social media in support of Black Lives Matter. And first of all, if we have to sort of tap into the greenwashing lingo here and the general, this is super vague. "Let's change" means absolutely nothing. It's fluffy, it's vague, and there is no follow-up, there is no anything. This is super vague and honestly a little bit embarrassing, and we're gonna go into more details with this. H&M have been super vocal about supporting anti-racist movements on Instagram, specifically Black Lives Matter. And as an isolated instance, that's amazing. We need more people talking about the injustices that Black people experience every day. We need everyone to talk about this. Also billion-dollar companies. But there's more to it. H&M uses sweatshops where both adults and children work 18-hour-long work days for very low wages, about half of the average living costs in that area. Violence, especially against female garment workers, are continuously increasing in sweatshops utilized by H&M and other fast fashion brands. When a big billion-dollar corporation like H&M is vocal about a social injustice issue, it's purely performative, because if they actually cared about people, then they would allow their garment workers to form unions and negotiate their own salary. They would not accept sexual violence as punishment in their factories, and they would shut down their factories because they are extremely dangerous to work in and workers pass out from toxic fumes. They would do all of these things, and they would invest in ethical supply chains for their entire production line and not just for a couple of conscious pieces. But they don't do that because they don't actually care about the people. They care about the publicity that comes from talking about these issues. And the people on Instagram who like their posts when they talk about "let's change" and "let's make things better for these people," they do that. And I'm going to sound cynical, I'm so sorry, but they do that because they know that will make you choose H&M because they seem like a better company than another fast fashion company, because they chose to speak out, but they didn't actually change anything. If they really wanted to change, and if they really wanted to protect Black people, people of color and indigenous people, they would start in their own supply chain. This kind of performative wokeness only works in a vacuum where we don't know the whole story. So if you have no idea about sweatshops and fast fashion and that impact and the human impact of it, then it would seem like a great thing that H&M are speaking out against racism. But when we do know, in fact, what they are doing, what they are specifically not doing, then it just sounds embarrassing and hollow. Next up, we have additional greenwashing. I didn't really know what to call this, but it's specifically the opposite of incognito greenwashing. This is when a company makes a product that is more sustainable than the average product, but instead of hiding away that they are the brand that made the product, they will broadcast it widely and very vocally, and there's a very good reason for that. This is, for instance, the case when a fast fashion company produces an organic, eco-conscious line next to their 51 other seasons of clothes, or when a dairy company makes vegan milk. And the example we're going to tap into in a bit is related to vegan products, so let's look at that as an example, because vegan food products, no matter its contents, will automatically have a lower impact than animal products, because producing animal products has a higher impact. Then we can talk about packaging and etc. But avoiding animal products in its bare form will be less impactful than buying plants. And this is specifically because that factory farming is one of the most impactful industries today and one of the worst polluters on the planet, both when it comes to air pollution, water pollution, land and soil disruption, the whole shenanigans. So last year, the biggest dairy brand in Denmark sued a small independent vegan company who made plant milks for calling their products milks, and they won. And now they have their own line of super sustainable, super conscious, super down-to-earth plant milks. This is happening in every industry, the fast fashion industry as well, where fast fashion is actively targeting slow fashion businesses. They're trying to smoke them out, and then once they are less of a threat, they will come out with their own line of similar products. This happens all the time, and this is not me saying we should never ever buy things that comes from bigger brands, because that can, especially for a lot of people, be really difficult, especially if you live in places where you don't have access to smaller brands or smaller businesses and products. But it's definitely something that we should have in mind. So what can we do better? It might feel right now that we cannot do anything right ever. I completely get that. I also sometimes have that feeling. It's important to remember that we don't have to do things perfectly. We don't have to do things always the most ideal way, because that's not how life works. That's not realistic. But we need to keep companies responsible, and we need to know why companies are doing what they're doing and what the impact of that is. And I hope it makes sense that I don't want to shame anyone for buying their mayo, their vegan mayo, from a big non-vegan brand, or for buying socks from H&M because that's the only thing they can afford. I'm just mad at the brands. I'm mad at the companies. I'm not mad at people generally. I hope that makes sense. Oh, okay. First of all, what we can do different is that, or what we can do better, is that if you have the option to support companies that are 100% dedicated, like slow fashion companies, like 100% plant-based or vegan companies. If we want to avoid fast fashion, then buying thrifted, buying secondhand, that also goes for furniture and appliances and stuff like that. And generally not tapping into the, well, at least they're trying, that's nice, I think we need to support that, because that does not necessarily do the thing we hope it's going to do. Buying plant milk from a butcher shop is not going to turn the butcher shop vegan. It's going to fund the continuous usage of meat. That's kind of what I want. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so supporting businesses that are 100% dedicated is a good way to start. Then we can look for third-party certifications, because the thing is, a lot of companies are making their own certifications or making their claims look like certificates. So look for third-party certifications, which means that a third organization that is not related to the company goes in, looks around, and determines whether or not they meet the standards that their certificate is sort of based upon. And that can be GOTS for organic cotton, that can be Rainforest Alliance, that can be fair trade. Although these third-party certifications are not always 100% right. Sometimes they're like, every system is flawed, and so is this, but it's definitely a good way to start as well. If you are looking at a product and it seems okay and it seems good, but you don't really know, turn it over, look at the back label, because that's where all the less desirable information will be, like where it's produced, who produced it, what's in it, how much recycled material is in it, what are the ingredients, all this kind of stuff. If you can also read beyond the label and find out where the product's made, what are the supply chains, what does the ingredients mean, which relate to palm oil, all of these things. But that's not something that is placed on the label. That's stuff that we as consumers have to find out for ourselves. And lastly, every time I criticize bigger companies, there will always be people in the comment section feeling like I am bullying the big companies, that I am expecting too much of them, that sort of expect me to have some compassion with the big companies because they're doing the best that they can. To which I only have to reply, we have to expect more from billion-dollar companies than we expect from ourselves and each other. They can do more. If a big company has $400 billion turnover annually, they can do more than reduce plastic by 15%. I know that they can, but they don't want to, because then they have to make less money. I don't want to sound like cynical and super mad and stuff, but I think this is important information to have. I think this is really useful to, I think this is necessary information to have if you want to be a conscious consumer. Again, you don't have to do everything perfectly. I also do not do everything perfectly. Nestle owns basically every company that we know, and it's really hard to avoid spending money with them all together. I get that. I do that as well myself. I am not perfect, but we need the information, and we need to know, which is what this video is about. And I hope that you got something from this. I hope that you liked it. Let me know down below if you want me to react to more greenwashed products, because I can definitely do that. Let's talk more about it. Also, leave me a comment down below if you simply just want to like call some product out. I would love to hear your stories with greenwashing. Like up this video if you liked it, that would make my day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green zero waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!